All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Ole Miss After Dark, joined once again by my main man, Hitch here. We are going to catch y'all up on everything that happened on the hardwood over the week. Ole Miss punches a ticket to the NCAA tournament, presumably. According to all the experts, 8 SEC wins is going to get you in the field. Ole Miss locked up their 8th win in Columbia Wednesday night. Kind of got hairy there for a minute, came out flat against Mississippi State and just got our asses kicked, quite frankly. But then we had baseball all of a sudden opened up this weekend, too. Rebels go 2-1 in Arlington. Good start to the weekend. We'll dive into all of that. But let's go ahead and get started on the hardwood here, Hicks. Like I said, Ole Miss traveled to Columbia, South Carolina. We talked on our show last Sunday, that while South Carolina hadn't won a conference game, playing up there, they've played really well at home, and this was no different. Ole Miss kind of shot the lights out there in the first half to build a lead there at halftime. South Carolina comes back, takes the lead late, and Malik Dia, quite frankly, just takes over for the last portion of the game, scoring 12 unanswered points. Ole Miss gets out of Columbia with a 72-68 win to move at that point to 8-4 in the SEC and presumably locking up a tournament berth.
Yeah, I mean, you felt really good there in the first half, going into halftime up 10, and then you feel really lucky. You feel really lucky getting out of Columbia with a W once the buzzer sounds. But like you said, I mean, we talked about it, right, leading up to this game, that it was going to be just because South Carolina is 0-10 in the conference or whatever they were, doesn't mean that we're just going to walk in there and expect to win. They've got some very good players on that team. And, CMB he did have 20 points and shot pretty well from the field, but they had a lot of other guys that contributed. Like I said, I think we were lucky to get out of there with a W. And it was a huge W, coming into Saturday. Now looking back.
Yeah. That's kind of thing in hindsight. It was a really big come from behind win to be able to get that one in Columbia because you see what we ended up having to deal with on Saturday. I talked about the hot shooting real quick. I'm going to touch on that in the first half. Game long. Didn't have near as many three-point attempts in the second half, only 2 for 4, 50%. That's still good, obviously, 80% from the free throw line. But then you look at the totals, 45.5% for the game overall, 61.5% from three. That'll play all day long, and then 82% from the free throw line. Again, this was kind of the same old thing, right? Rebounding kind of took you out of it a little bit. Points in the paint, we've been pretty good this year and ended up 32 apiece here in this game. Fast break points, we led 13-5. That was another big one for us. We always have to search for these smaller stats to kind of get Ole Miss to the finish line to win there, right? Second half, they out-rebound us by 8, end up out-rebounding us by 8, 35-27. Overall for the game, 10-6 on the offensive side. So you kind of look at that, and that's kind of the story of the game, right? Holding our own in the paint, and then bench points was another big one for us as well. But the three-pointers in particular, 8 for 13 to 4 for 14 for South Carolina. But we ended up getting out of there with the win, set up a game Saturday in Oxford against arch rival Mississippi State. Usually you can pretty much bank on the fact that we're going to lose in Starkville and lose in Oxford. That's kind of how this basketball series has gone for the last several years. And, kind of felt like Ole Miss had some momentum there early in the first half, but really rough into the first half there. Mississippi State ends up going into the locker room up 7 after a little bit of a spurt there to end things. And then in the second half, we only got outscored by 3, but in reality, we got our ass kicked. We were down by 20 at one point, if I'm not mistaken. And it was this is a game where it wasn't as close as the 10-point final score ends up saying.
No, it felt ugly, right there, like that last spurt at the end of the first half. From there, to the end of the game, it felt like just an absolute butt kicking. It didn't feel great, but I mean, I think State's just proven over the past 2 games to be a really bad matchup for us and what we try to do, right, offensively, right? I mean, we struggle mightily to score 81 points or whatever it was that we scored. Every single point was difficult. It felt like, and so I don't know what they were doing. I didn't notice much after it got kind of ugly. I was kind of looking forward to the baseball game and turned this one off. But it just, both times we've played them, it has felt like every point we've scored has been blood, sweat, and tears getting it into the basket.
Yeah, and that's kind of how this one was too. And again, it goes back to the same things: rebounding, offensive rebounding, and us shooting poorly from the 3-point line, particularly in the second half. Which look, we're chasing, we're trying to get back in the game. We didn't take the best shots there, but you're trying to put something up, try to get something go through the rim, kind of cut into this lead a little bit. But again, rebounding wise, we get out rebounded 48-36. Offensive rebounds 14-7. Blocks 7-4 in Mississippi State's favor, steals 9-8 in Mississippi State's favor. That's one area Ole Miss is really good at. It's something that offsets the lack of rebounding we have. We're really good at forcing turnovers and stealing the ball. And State did end up with more turnovers, but it didn't lead to transition points, right? And that's kind of what we needed for this offense. Thought it was interesting. Beard ended up sending all 5 starters to the podium after the game for the post-game press conference. He talked about how he was wanting them to take accountability. He was hoping that the local media there would ask them tough questions, try to figure out what was going on. So I thought that was a really good sign of Beard saying,
hey. Where were we? I mean, we didn't get the invite, I guess.
Well, we should have just zoomed in, right?
Yeah.
Because I had questions by the time that game ended, I assure you. None of them that they probably lost.
Excuse me, I've got a question over here. Why did they not call a flagrant 1 foul when that guy absolutely killed Eduardo Klafke under the basket? That's what I want to know.
You and Klafke, man, my God. There wasn't a soul around him. As soon as that happened, I thought, all right, this one's over with. And the first thing I thought was, I cannot fire this text to hit y'all fast enough.
Yeah, I screamed foul, and there wasn't anybody within 3 feet of me. Nobody within 3 feet.
Nowhere close. But look, Ole Miss is in a good position again. You're 8-5, I believe, in the conference as it sets right now. So that 8th win should get you into the NCAA tournament. Obviously, you don't want to go in 8-10. Don't want to lose all of these games running down the stretch. And look, we're not going to. It was a bad game. Quite frankly, 3 lackluster performances in a row in Baton Rouge, in Columbia, and then at home against Mississippi State. We do get the week off, no midweek game this week. Next game is Saturday in Nashville against Vanderbilt at 2:30, and I've got a feeling Chris Beard's going to have his guys locked in, and he better have them locked in because this is one that Vanderbilt is circling that they need to get, because I think they get Auburn midweek. So Vanderbilt's going to get that one Saturday. Speaking of Auburn, we travel to Auburn the following Wednesday at 6 o'clock. Oklahoma at home. That's another one you have to get if you're Ole Miss. And then you get Tennessee at home. You take your shot there against a top 5 ranked volunteer team. And then in the year at Florida. I think if Ole Miss can find a way to get a couple more wins here on their resume, they're in really good shape here heading into March. Maybe build a little bit of momentum, try to make some noise in the tournament.
Yeah, I really think the Vanderbilt and Oklahoma games are must wins, right? But when you look at it as far as like seeding, purposes, because at Auburn, the number 1 team in the country, we've seen them, right? We know what they're going to do. Good luck. I mean, I'm not saying we can't win that game, but I mean, Bruce Pearl has done amazing things at Auburn, and that place is a jungle, right? When they show it on television, it's crazy. Tennessee, I actually think that Tennessee's a like state and is a bad matchup for Ole Miss defensively. The way that they play defense and kind of guard the 3-point line really well. And then Florida, yeah, we talked about offensive
Good luck.
rebounding. Yeah, but Vanderbilt, man, I've probably watched Vanderbilt play more than I should have this year. I've probably watched them play 3 or 4 times, and they're good. Like, they're good in the ways that we're not. In a way, they've got a big guy that is a banger. Like, he will get down in there and bang and score in the paint. Now, we have guys that do that too, but it's a little bit different style. Man, they go hard on the offensive glass. They've got a guard that just throws up circus shots and hits them. We're going to have to be there to play, because Vanderbilt, the past 3 or 4 games, have been playing really well. And I feel like we need to win that one going into Auburn.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and they're really good at home. So it kind of sounds like Vanderbilt basketball to you is Jacksonville State football to me, right? You watch way more than you probably should, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, them in Missouri. I've probably watched Missouri more than I've watched Ole Miss.
Dude, Missouri's fun. They're a fun team to watch. So, all right, we'll go ahead and shift gears to baseball here. It's kind of what we've been waiting on for a while, Hitch. Anybody that's followed our show for any amount of time knows how much we love us some Ole Miss baseball, and it finally came around this past Friday in Arlington, Texas, in Grinders Classic. We played Arizona on Friday, Texas on Saturday, wrapped it up with Clemson on Sunday. Ole Miss comes out of the weekend 2-1, and look, that's a really good weekend for a team that number one was picked 15th in the SEC by the coaches to finish the year, not ranked in the top 25. Obviously, we played 3 top 25 teams here in Arlington, come away with 2 wins. I want to start with this Arizona game, because the interesting part of this was everybody wanted to see what Hunter Elliott looked like, right? Hasn't pitched basically in 2 years. And he comes out, and I don't know what you thought about Hitch. I thought he looked really impressive. A little bit of rust there with the 3 walks in 5 innings. But overall, you look at his line, 5 innings, 3 strikeouts, 3 walks, only 2 hits, no earned runs, 1 hit by pitch through 75 pitches. Overall, velocity was ticked up. I think he ended up touching 94. Mainly sat, 89 to 91. They're in the first couple innings. From what I heard, Flow Sports doesn't have the radar gun and all that, obviously, but from people that covered the game, Chase Barham and other guys that covered the program that were there in Arlington watching it, sounded like the first couple innings he was mainly 91 to 93, and then after that's when it kind of tailed off to the 91 to 92. But look, with the changeup as good as it is, and it was really good again on Friday, that's more than good enough to play from the left-hand side.
Yeah, I mean, going into this game, I was looking for Hunter Elliott to see what he would do, and the defense to see if we had cleaned up any of that defense. And then on the offensive side, we'll talk about that. I was just looking for the transfers. I just wanted to see what they looked like at the plate. And really, I don't have much bad to say about it. I mean, I thought Hunter Elliott was. I mean, if I were a person who let my emotions show outwardly often, I would have cried right when he came off the mound, because I mean it's such a cool story, and to see him come back up there and throw the way he did. And the walks, you said rust. I don't know if it's rust or just if Hunter is so competitive that he's not going to give in on a 3-ball count, right? It may be 3-0 or 3-1, and he's still attacking, trying to hit corners and stuff. So maybe rust, may not be. The only thing that in his line that is concerning, if you want to use that word, is 9 flyouts and 1 ground out. Along with the 3 strikeouts. You'd probably like to see a few more strikeouts, and we will over the course of the year. And the flyouts, right? He pitched up in the zone the entire night, and so you're not going to get a lot of ground balls there. And so if he continues to do that, we'll see. The ballpark at Arlington there is a little bit larger than a lot of college parks, but I don't remember anybody really barreling anything up and hitting the ball that was in danger of getting out of the park. So, but one thing going forward, just maybe cut down on those flyouts because once balls get up in the air, they can get gone.
Yeah, especially as the weather starts warming up and all of that, right? When summer starts coming around. One thing I did notice overall from the pitchers this weekend, and I wonder if it's a Joel Mangrum philosophy change a little bit. It seemed like we pitched up in the zone a lot more as a staff, like as a whole, right?
Mm-hmm.
You even saw Maddox on Saturday. Yeah, fastball up. You saw a lot of elevated fastballs from this staff. And look, I'm not against an elevated fastball. There's a lot of times where that's the best pitch you can go to try to get a third strike and get an out. After Hunter Elliott pitched his 5 scoreless innings, thought it was a really good performance from Mason Morris, a guy we've heard about that has really progressed, added velo, added more depth on his breaking ball. That seemed to have been a pitch that they were excited about. Coming into this year, the way it had developed, goes 2 2/3 inning, 3 hits, 1 earned, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, 1 wild pitch. You can call that a wild pitch if you want to. It should have at least stayed in front of the catcher. So we got one of those out of the way in game 1 already. Yeah, it was a little outside, but you've got to get out there and you've got to keep those balls in front of you. It was something that really, really ate this staff and this team alive last year, was balls getting to the backstop. And one of the things that I was concerned about from a catching standpoint, I'll come back to Mason here in a minute, we got crossed up 2 different times in that game. Smith did one time in the second inning. You could see Hunter constantly shaking off. And when he comes set to throw the ball, you could look at Smithwick, and he kind of had his arm up like, what are we doing here? What are we throwing? And he throws a changeup, and he's looking fastball. And luckily, he got enough on it, hit right off the bottom of the glove, fell straight down to the ground, and he was able to keep it in front of him. And then later on with Mason Morris, he got crossed up again, looked like he was looking fastball once again. And that's why that one trailed outside on him, got to the backstop. That's one thing we need to fix. But that's something we'll be monitoring as the season goes on. With Campbell at the backstop, you didn't see him the next 2 games back there. You saw foul. He sounded like that was a playing thing, though. Had nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Mike said that they had these things planned out ahead of time with these 3 games. But yeah, Mason Morris thought he looked pretty good. Had some good zip on the fastball. Again, we don't have any sort of radar numbers unless you were there in the stadium. I would imagine he was sitting, anywhere from 93 to 95, something like that, 96 maybe. But overall, he came in, did his job, gave you almost 3 full innings of work there, and basically kept Arizona right there, only giving up 1 run while you're up 2.
Yeah, man. Mason Morris is – I would talk for the next hour and a half about his performance because, he's always been a reliable guy. Man, he's been here. This is third, fourth year, whatever. And he's been pitched since he was a freshman. But one thing that I was excited to see is that he threw so many fastballs. I mean, last year I got so frustrated, and I don't know if anybody ever talked about this or pointed this out. You listen to other people, I don't. So I'm just throwing out my opinion, what I think I could be full of shit. I don't know. But it just felt like he just relied on that slider and that off-speed pitch so much last year, which a lot of our guys did, which was frustrating to me. And I was looking to see if we came in as a staff and just had a fastball attack mentality, and it felt like we did. And Mason Morris I knew Hunter Elliott would. He's different, whatever. But Mason Morris come in, and it was fastball after fastball after fastball after fastball. And then on top of that, he has gotten some sink, some arm sign run, something going on it, because I felt like in the past 2 years he's been that 4-seamer's been kind of flat. And that maybe is why he doesn't use it often, but it really felt like it had some sink on it. And every once in a while they would throw up the box and the pitch would have the mile per hour on it. And I mean, you're right. He was 93 to 95. Man, if he's coming out 93, 95 with that sink on that fastball, and then he's able to, because that slider's always been really, really good. It's just when I see it 15 times in a bat, I think I got it. And so, but you add that fastball to it, man, and I'm excited about this pitching staff and seeing what Mangrum does with that fastball philosophy.
Yeah. That's what I'd say. That's definitely a philosophy change that we've seen so far in the early going. A lot more fastballs, a lot more hard stuff, whether it be 4-seamers, 2-seamers, cutters, sinkers. Saw a lot of cutters, and obviously with Maddox, you're going to see some sinkers as well, like we saw on Saturday. Connor Spencer came in, 1 1/3, picks up the save, got a little hairy there for a little bit there in the 9th inning. I think I saw a thing where he had gone 1-2 to the first 2 batters in the 9th. I think I had this right, or maybe it was the second and third batters. 1 and 2 ends up walking both of them, though. They're in a 1-run game. It's one thing you've got to get under control. You can't put runners on base in the 3rd inning and be a dominant type closer. But the big thing is he ends up coming back, getting the save there, and that's obviously a big deal there. Going to need Connor to lock things down at the back end of that bullpen, and that's what he was able to do on Friday night. Let's shift gears to the offensive side here, though. What we saw on Friday, Campbell Smith with led off, ends up going 0 for 4. But then your 2-3 guys right here, Luke Hill, Isaac Humphreys. Obviously, Luke Hill had a great weekend all weekend long, but Humphreys coming in, hits a big bomb there. What would that have been in the 5th inning, I think it was, to put us up 2-0. Got absolutely all of that one. And then Luke Hill drives in our first run there in the 5th with the sacrifice flat out to score. Braden Randall, after Randall stole second base, gets moved over to 3rd, ends up coming to score, manufactured a run. How many times did we talk last year about how nice it would be to actually manufacture a run instead of having to rely on the long ball?
I know. Yeah, it was great. I almost sent a message that was like, hey, a bunt.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And I think Randall got on by walking, if I'm not mistaken, too. He walked, stole a base, gets over to 3rd, and then Luke Hill ends up driving him in there. So, but outside of that, not a whole lot offensively from the Rebels. Judd Udemark, 1 for 4. He does have a strikeout there. A guy that had a pretty good weekend, I thought, in his first action as a Rebel, Ryan Moorman. He put some really good swings on the ball, had that double there.
He put a charge into that
in
one.
Friday
I thought it was
game.
gone.
Do what?
And he put a charge into it. I thought it was gone.
He hits it hard. So offensively, though, that's about all there is to speak of there on Friday night. But big part of that is the Rebels come away with a 2-1 win to start off 1-0 in Arlington before we move on to the Texas game. And this one was interesting. Obviously, we end up getting run ruled, which sucked. But you get Riley Maddox back on the mound, and dude, for 3 innings, he was as good as I'd ever seen him. That 2-seam fastball was eating people alive early on for those first 3 innings, particularly when he went to the outside part of the plate with it, because it would start so far off and it had so much run back to it that they couldn't pull the trigger on. He was getting call after call after call.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like it was a change from last year where he kept, throwing it under people's hands. And he was, which is great if you can locate it on both sides of the plate. Amazing. But you're right. I mean, he was really sharp for about 3 innings. And it just kind of all fell apart. Like it felt like he just stopped trusting that fastball a little bit and started, throwing that slider, which it's a very good slider. But I think the one that the guy hit out was he threw it like 3 pitches in a row, and the third one that he threw was a spinner, and man, that kid didn't miss it, and that's where it kind of all unraveled.
Yeah, and that was kind of set up by so he gives up, I believe, a double to lead off the 3rd, if I'm remembering right, and then he gets a pop fly kind of in the Bermuda Triangle there between 2 outfielders and Luke Hill, and Luke goes for the over-the-shoulder catch. It's off the heel of his glove. If you get that out right there, runner on second, 1 out, maybe you're able to settle down, but that kind of felt like the snowball that kept rolling down the hill to where they just couldn't stop it after that. And Riley ends up going 3 1/3, 6 earned runs. No walks, 6 strikeouts though. That's the thing. Like his stuff was so good. I'm not willing to say that that he had a bad game. He had a really bad inning, but I don't feel like he had a bad game at all. Everything just kind of unraveled there in the 4th inning for him. Couldn't get anything going. Sam Takuian comes in, and while the stuff is good, he could not find the plate. I'm not sure he could have walked it up to the plate and gotten it over for a strike there in that 4th inning. Doesn't record an out, 1 run, 1 earned, 3 walks. Like I said, just really struggled. But then one of the bright spots from the weekend, Walker Hooks comes in, the freshman out of Brandon, and he was absolutely dynamic. 2 2/3, no hits, retired everybody that he saw, no walks, 4 strikeouts. What did you see out of Hooks that impressed you on Saturday?
He dealt, man. He just attacked hitters in the strike zone. It felt like with fastballs and breaking balls. But he also had the ability to get a guy out with a breaking ball by throwing it out of the zone. I mean, looked really good. It's exciting when kids that I don't know, like kids that I don't know. I don't look at the roster before the game. Like I like to be surprised. But when he comes out, it's like, oh, here's a name that I don't recognize. And he comes out and it's like, that's a name I'm going to be paying attention to going forward.
Yeah. It was very Hunter Elliott-like, right? His true freshman year, coming out of the bullpen, a lefty with a good frame on him. He's not coming out, blowing 95, 96 by you. He's going to sit upper 80s, low 90s, in that 89 to 92 range. But he's got that really good breaking ball from the left-handed side as well that keeps you off balance where you can't catch up to that fastball. And like you said, he really did a good job attacking the zone. He was in the strike zone the entire game. And for a freshman, that's a really big deal. Come out, throw strikes, let your stuff play, and you take the results. And the results in this one was an absolutely dominant debut for the true freshman Walker Hooks. Like I said, 2 2/3, retired everybody, no walks, 4 strikeouts. Absolutely incredible. Landon Waters comes in. He does struggle a little bit, 1/3 of an inning, 3 earned, no walks, no strikeouts, gave up 2 hits. And your guy Gunnar Dennis still hanging around here. Finishes the game out with 1/3 of an inning, 1 walk, 1 strikeout, 1 hit allowed. I thought Gunnar looked okay in the very limited action we had, but it almost seemed like he had a little bit more life in that left arm this time.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, if he's a guy with experience, if he can, there will be times I'm sure that we will need a guy to come in the 2nd inning and get us into the 7th inning, right? And Gunnar Dennis is that guy. If he's throwing strikes, let's go.
Yeah, I'd actually made a comment yesterday about I was talking about Will McCausland, and look, he looked incredible on Sunday. We're about to get to him here in just a little bit on the show. But one of the roles of the bullpen, you've got to figure all these roles out, right? And one of them is you've got to have a guy that when you're up a bunch or down a bunch, whichever one, you need a guy to come in 8 innings and save a bullpen. A guy that's going to come in, throw 3, 4, maybe even 5 innings at some point, act as a second starter if, your guy gets knocked around in the 2nd or 3rd inning and it's on, like say it happens to Maddox again, you need to set your bullpen up for Sunday. You need a guy to come in to 8 innings. Gunnar Dennis could fill that role. McCausland could fill that role. Even though as good as he looked, he might be destined for something a little bit more than that. And we'll go ahead and get into Sunday's game right now. But I did want to point out Gunnar Dennis. I was in the limited action kind of impressed with what he had. Looks like he had a little bit more in the tank than what I saw last season.
It's like Harris on Major League, right? Harris on Major League.
Well, yeah, because he didn't have the jalapenos and all.
True.
All natural, man. One thing Mike Bianco pointed out, though, after this game against Clemson was how they were able to bounce back. Obviously, you get run ruled against Texas, come back the next day, and by all accounts, everybody says Clemson is the best team in this classic that we played. They were obviously the highest ranked. They were dominating people all weekend until they ran into the Rebels on Sunday. And Mike talked about how impressed he was that you get run ruled by Texas, you go back, you flush it, forget about it, come back to the ballpark, play another really good team, and then you look up and you end up run ruling them as well. And again, we'll start at the pitching side here because there's a lot to talk about. Mason Nichols, thought he looked pretty good. Pitch count, 51 through 3 innings. That's obviously something that you're going to have to get under control if he stays the Sunday starter. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. I think there are other options. Hitch, I don't think me and you've actually talked about this on the show. What do you think about my theory? Because I've said it on Locked On Ole Miss with Stephen Wills. I said it when Zach Morath came on. I even mentioned it during the Hudson Calhoun and the Luke Hill interviews about Mason, for this team to reach its full potential, Mason Nichols needs to be in the bullpen, and we need McCausland, Calhoun, J.P. Robertson, Walker Brooks, somebody to step up and take over that Sunday role and let Nichols be that high leverage anytime you need him. When you absolutely have to have an out, bring him out of the bullpen and get it for you.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. We haven't talked about it, but I think that if Mason Nichols was in that role last year because he had to be.
Yes.
And it feels like this year, maybe he doesn't have to be. And so, it would be great if one of those guys, like you said, McCausland looked great yesterday. He started wherever he was before up in the Northeast.
St. Joe's.
He was a starter there. And Hudson Calhoun, had his great summer. I agree with you about Mason Nichols being in the bullpen. And maybe it's because he was in the bullpen his first 2 years and was such a big part of the bullpen in that 2022 year. I mean, but I also don't have the trouble with Riley Maddox either. Same story, Riley Maddox bullpen to starter by necessity almost. And then Mason Nichols the same way, but it feels like Riley fits into the starter role a little more than Mason Nichols. And man, I'm with you.
Yeah,
I feel super comfortable with Mason Nichols in a high leverage situation. Like put us in a high leverage situation. If I can have my pick of anybody on the roster, right? I'm tagging Mason Nichols because I know that he has the experience and in those high leverage situations.
Yeah, and I think one reason that it's probably easier for us to say that Nichols would be better out of the bullpen as opposed to Riley is we haven't seen a lot of Riley out of the bullpen, right? He came out of the bullpen his true freshman year, got hurt, missed it, and he came back, pitched very, very sparingly the following year there at the end of the year, but we were out of it, no sense to push it, and then comes back and he ends up being a starter for us. And he's been, good in that role. He's been a workhorse for us. But Nichols, I think there's so much value with him coming out of the bullpen. Always go back to 2022 Josh Mallets. Anytime we had to have an out, we were going to Josh Mallets to go get that out for us, right? He was that high leverage guy. And then right behind him was Nichols before you got to Brandon Johnson during that 2022 season. I think that's where Ole Miss has its high ceiling. But look, absolutely nothing against Mason starting. He was great last year when he started. He was fine in this game. Got to get his pitch count under control a little bit. Needs to be a little bit more efficient, but didn't really have to be that way in this game as the local offense broke out. Like I said, 3 innings, 5 hits, 3 earned. Yeah.
Real quick about him being in the bullpen. I think maybe although he has more than 2 pitches, he really feels like a 2-pitch guy. Fastball, slider. And so it's hard to be a starting pitcher when you have 2 pitches because once you get through the lineup once or twice, right, they've seen everything that you have. Again, not that he doesn't have 3 really good pitches, but he tends to lean on fastball, slider. And so that also makes him feel like a bullpen guy. And also those 2 pitches are elite and what would make him also in those high leverage situations.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Well, and look, when you come out of the bullpen, you're able to let go a little bit, right? You're not trying to save yourself to get through 4, 5, 6 innings. You're looking at, okay, I got to get through this inning. You're about to get everything that I've got in this arm. You're able to reach back. You're able to throw a little bit harder. able to get a little bit more movement on things as well. That's one of the differences between the starter and a reliever there. But 3 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts, 1 hit by pitch. Again, 51 pitches there in the 3 innings. So he was fine. Wasn't ever in trouble of losing this game here the way the offense played. Ryan Rodriguez comes in, another lefty, goes a third of an inning, 2 hits, 1 earned, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. Ends up throwing 21 pitches there in the third of an inning. That's obviously not what you want to see. And then kind of the story of the day, at least from the pitching side, you're going to have plenty to choose from offensively, but Will McCausland, we brought him up a couple times already. Transfer from St. Joe's, goes 3 2/3, 3 hits, 1 earned, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts, 65 pitches. Just thought he was absolutely dynamic, and it goes back to your point about pounding the strike zone with Walker Hooks, right? That McCausland came in and did the same thing, and he said that after the game. His mindset was, I'm going to throw the fastball, I'm going to throw it in the zone, and you're going to have to hit it, and they just couldn't.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what you want to see, right? Either Saturday night when you're down by a bunch or Sunday when you're up by a bunch. You want to see guys come in and fill it up, because either on Saturday night you're ready to get out of there and go home, right? Let's don't prolong this thing any longer by walking people, and then the same thing on Sunday. It's like, let's don't give them a chance to get back into this game with one swing of the bat. Let's fill it up. Yeah, I mean, he looked really impressive. I mean, he had a pretty good breaker, as Ty Harrington constantly called it. That sometimes that thing would sweep all the way across the zone, and so I thought he looked really good.
Yeah. So that's definitely somebody we'll keep an eye on going forward this year. Another guy that made his Ole Miss debut. We've already talked about Walker Hooks, talked about Will McCausland. Our guy Hayden Federico, true freshman out of Monroe, Louisiana, goes 3 for 5, 3 runs scored, 2 RBIs, and it seemed like every time he made contact, he hit it right on the nose, and it was a line drive to the outfield. Was really impressed with the way he handled himself. Again, true freshman, switch hitter. If I'm not mistaken, got hits off of lefties and righties on Sunday against Clemson. Just seemed like every time he swung, he was right on time with it.
I missed his right-handed at bat. That it had to have been his second at bat, maybe, or I don't know. But that's the at bat that he got out, his first out, I think. But his first 2 at bats that I saw, maybe the first and third at bat, his swing is pure, right? Like, I don't know how to describe it other than it's so fluid. That it just looks like he knows exactly what he's doing every second of that swing, right? Like he knows where he's trying to hit the baseball every time, and he hits it with some authority on a line. Yeah, it was good to see a young freshman come out, get an opportunity, and because like you said, this seemed like it was planned out, right? It's not like somebody played bad and we put a freshman in. So that tells us too that he's probably been, doing pretty well in practice, having good inter squads and things like that. Probably had a pretty good fall. So it's good to see him rewarded with some playing time and to actually show off. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. He was one of the guys that Bianco highlighted last week in the media days when he was going through the potential starting lineups, who would play where, who would be seeing action this weekend. He mentioned Hayden Federico. If you kept up with the inter squads, fall ball, stuff like that, he was the name that kept coming up. Somebody just went up there and had good bats, good swings on the ball. You saw more of that on Sunday against Clemson. Probably the player of the game, Luke Hill, in the 2-hole all weekend long, and he had himself an absolute ball game on Sunday. Goes 3 for 3 with 2 walks, 2 home runs, 4 runs scored, 5 RBI. He just did a little bit of everything, and it seems like everything right now, which is what you want to see. He's going to the opposite field so much. He is on it, going to right field, and usually if somebody goes, 3 for 3 with 2 bombs and a bunch of hard hit balls, you see him pulling a lot. He's just staying inside the baseball and he's hammering it the other way. And that's when you know a guy's locked in when he can do that.
Yeah. I mean, it picked up right where he left off last year, right? Just a hitting machine. I love it.
Yeah. And he did it again. Played second base the last two games here in Arlington on Saturday and Sunday. Judd Udemark, maybe with the hardest hit ball I've ever seen from a college player. I mean, good Lord. 116.8 miles an hour off the bat, 450 feet upper deck in Arlington.
Yeah. All right. So his first at bat was awful. It was real bad. And it was like he went back to the dugout and he's like, he better not throw that again. And he threw it again. And I think maybe the action that I would say was Judd swatted that ball. Like it was the most confident swing I've ever seen, I think. And I mean, it was launched. Now
it was.
I don't want Judd to fall into like feast or famine here, but because that's detrimental to the lineup. But man, he hit that ball. If I was that pitcher, I would have come on out here and get me, brother. I ain't got no more in me after that.
I'd have given myself the hook. Yeah,
because I don't know. His swing was impressive
and violent. Other guys that stood out on Sunday, Ryan Moorman again goes two for 5 with the run scored, 3 RBIs, hits his first home run as a Rebel. Isaac Humphreys 1 for 4. He did strike out a couple of times. Austin Fowley, one of the few Rebels that had a goose egg in the hit department, but he did draw a walk. He did score a run, so he was still productive.
He hit a couple balls hard,
Mitchell Sanford. Yeah. And Sanford, I was impressed with him, especially with the lefty on lefty again. But he goes 1 for 2, 2 runs scored, couple walks. Thought he really handled himself well up there at the plate. Had Colin Reuter at first base, giving Will Furnace a breather. He goes 2 for 3 with a walk, 2 runs scored. Again, a couple of hard hit balls to the opposite field for Reuter there. And I'm patting myself on the back here, Hitch. Before the lineup came out, I put in our group text, I would like to see Luke Chang at shortstop here in place of Pano and give him a bit of a breather. I don't think Mike's going to do it, but that's what I would like to see. And sure enough, he puts him in the 9-hole. And look, he was very productive. Not only was he very good defensively, he did not log an official at bat this game. Did you know that?
I was going to say. Yeah, well, I was just looking at it.
Did not log an official at bat.
Isn't that interesting?
Goes with he ends up walking, sacrifice bunt, sacrifice fly, scored a run, has an RBI, and more importantly, didn't let anything get past him defensively. Really, really good debut for Luke Chang as well. Not filling up the stat sheet, but he did everything you'd want out of a 9-hole hitter that's playing shortstop for you.
Yeah, up and down the lineup, everybody contributed, and that's I mean, this is what happens when you do that. Right. And man, the transfers, I think I was impressed by all of them. We've talked to Isaac, right. And he hit that home run Friday night and was just like, okay, he's great. I'm excited and wanting to see Sanford more now after watching him this weekend. His swing, like I loved watching him swing the bat. Like his swing is obviously he's left-handed, but it's just it's pretty, like it's poetry in motion. So he didn't have a great first 2 nights. Had a hit, got on base a couple of times. So I'm ready to see that swing get going. But everybody just played really well on Sunday, and it was a fun game to watch.
Yeah, it was. And like I said, you end up logging 2 top 25 wins to start the year. Coming back home on Tuesday, 4:00 first pitch against Arkansas State, and then open up series in Swayze against, I believe it's Eastern Kentucky. Before we get out of here, Hitch, give me your player of the weekend on the diamond for the Rebs. Which one stood out to you the most?
Were so many to choose from, because when you asked me that, I immediately thought, oh, this guy, and then I thought, well, this guy, then this guy. I'm going to go offensively. I'm going to go Luke Hill. Just had a great weekend, and it's nice to see him after the rough start he had last year, right? Some defensive things and just didn't hit well. Then we got into SEC play. He really, I mean, I would say he probably was the best hitter on the team from SEC play on. And just to see that roll over, I mean, he had 2 hits on Friday night. Hit the ball hard yesterday, or I'm sorry, on Saturday, and then had the big day today on Sunday. Luke Hill gets my vote for player of the weekend.
Yeah. You can't go wrong with Luke. Obviously, good to see what we saw out of Walker Hooks in his debut, along with Phil McCausland. He was really good as well in his first showing as a Rebel. But I'm going to have to go with our guy, Hunter Elliott. If you don't have a Friday night ace in this league, I don't care how good you are everywhere else, you're going to struggle. Looks like our ace is back after 2 years on the shelf. Hunter's back, Tupelo native, the big lefty coming to shove in the SEC and get the Rebels back to where they need to be and hopefully get us back to Omaha. That's my player of the weekend because it was good to see him back after all this time.
He is so big. Right? I see him in Kroger sometimes, and like he is so big. And I'm not a huge guy. I'm probably 6'2", right? And he makes me feel small when I walk up beside him. I'm like, oh my God. You don't realize how tall he is when you see him on TV. But yeah, just the only thing, I think we had a great weekend, right? 2 wins. I don't know that we could have asked for better outside of sweeping. And I don't know that anybody went into the weekend thinking we were going to win all 3 games. I think we looked good 2 out of the 3. The one, unfortunately, is a team out of the SEC. And so I think I told you last night, my coming out of this weekend, my only fear is that we may have found out that we are one of the best teams in the ACC and the Big 12 and maybe middle of the road in the SEC.
And I hope that's not just kind of how that goes, though.
We're going to have to some guys are going to have to step up. I mean, if we have guys step up and play like they did Sunday, Judd Udemart with a big bomb, right? Luke Hill keep playing like that. You got guys pitch. We're going to be good. But man, we say it every sport, every year. This league is going to, if we have a few missteps or if we struggle on defense like we did last year, this league's going to eat us alive again.
Yeah. Well, look, one thing about it, I don't care how good you are, this league is going to humble all 16 teams at one point or another during the year. It's just going to happen. It's the best baseball league in the conference, just like we were the best basketball league in the conference, just like we're the best football league in the conference. When you play in the SEC, you're playing the best of the best every single weekend. You're going to get got at some point. Stay the course. Do not lose your mind over a single loss or dropping 2 out of 3 or anything like that. This is baseball. Those things are going to happen, particularly in this league. Good start.
Let us lose our minds because we will lose our minds. Let me lose my mind. Yeah, that's
fine. Let us vent for you.
I'll lose my mind. You don't. Yeah. You keep yours.
Yeah, that's right. So, but good start. Ready for the next 4 games to get going this week. Like I said, Ole Miss basketball off midweek. Go to Vanderbilt on Saturday. So just an absolutely packed week for the Rebels. 1 basketball game, 4 baseball games. And this is our time of year, Hitch. We've been waiting for a while for baseball to start back up. It's here. It looks like we're going to be pretty good. So it's going to be a fun season, and I'm ready to get into it a little bit more.
Yep. Let's do it. Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy. We'll see y'all again next week. Appreciate it.
All right.